The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Colt Mercer held it between his calloused fingers like it might bite him, standing in the doorway of his ranch house while the Montana wind tried to rip it away. The paper was expensive, too expensive for anything good. His name was written in careful script across the front, and he knew what it was before he even broke the seal. Mr. Mercer, your bride will arrive on the 4:15 train, April 12th. We trust this arrangement will prove satisfactory to all parties. He crumpled it halfway, then stopped, smoothed it back out, read it again. April 12th was tomorrow. Hell, he muttered. The house behind him sat quiet and dark, the kind of silence that wasn't peaceful, just empty. 3 years empty, if he was counting, which he wasn't. Counting made it real, and Colt had gotten good at keeping certain things unreal. He'd sent the inquiry to the matrimonial agency 6 months ago, half drunk and wholly desperate. Winter had been brutal. His ranch hand, Miguel, had taken a job closer to town where the pay was steadier, and the boss wasn't a mean son of a bitch with a dead wife's ghost in every room. The house needed a woman's presence, the agency letter had said, a partnership built on mutual respect and necessity. Colt didn't want mutual respect. He wanted someone who could cook, mend, and not ask questions. Someone plain and sturdy who understood that this was business, not romance. Someone who wouldn't look at him and see all the ways he'd failed. The wind picked up, carrying the smell of coming rain. Colt folded the letter, shoved it in his pocket, and went to check the fences. Work was easier than thinking. The train station in Coldwater, Montana, was little more than a wooden platform and a ticket booth that doubled as the postmaster's office. Colt arrived 15 minutes early, which annoyed him. Punctuality implied he cared. He leaned against a post, hat pulled low, watching the tracks shimmer in the afternoon heat. A handful of other people waited, Mrs. Brennan with her 2 boys, probably meeting her sister from Billings, old Henry Calhoun, who met every train for reasons no one understood, and Tom Farley, the sheriff, who tipped his hat at Colt with a grin that meant he knew exactly why Colt was there. "Heard you got yourself a bride coming in," Tom said, sidling over. "You heard wrong." "That's so." Tom's grin widened. "Because I heard from Susie at the telegraph office, who heard from, yeah, well, Susie should mind her own damn business." "In Coldwater? Good luck with that." The train whistles sounded in the distance, low and mournful. Colt's stomach tightened. This was a mistake. He should have canceled the whole thing, sent a telegram, saved them both the trouble. What kind of woman answers an ad like his anyway? Rancher seeks wife. Must be hardworking, practical, and accustomed to isolation. Romance not expected. The train rounded the bend, brakes squealing. Steam hissed across the platform as it jerked to a stop, and passengers began to disembark. A cattle broker Colt recognized. 2 miners heading south. Mrs. Brennan's sister, exactly as predicted. And then, her. Colt saw the dress first. Deep green traveling wool, fitted at the waist with jet buttons running up the front. Impractical for Montana. Too fine. The woman wearing it stepped down carefully, one gloved hand on the rail, a leather valise in the other. She was tall, taller than he'd expected, with dark hair pinned up beneath a hat that probably cost more than his best horse. She turned, scanning the platform, and Colt got a good look at her face. His first thought, wrong woman. His second, shit. She was beautiful. Not pretty. Beautiful. The kind of beautiful that made men stupid, that started fights in saloons, that had no business on a cattle ranch in the middle of nowhere. High cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. A mouth that was currently pressed into a thin line of determination. She spotted him. He didn't know how, he hadn't moved, hadn't called out, but her gaze locked onto his like she'd known exactly where to look. She started toward him, weaving through the small crowd with the kind of grace that came from years of practice. "Mr. Mercer?" Her voice was lower than he'd expected, steadier. "Ma'am?" He didn't take off his hat, didn't smile. "I'm Elena Voss." She set down her valise, extended her hand. He stared at it. She didn't lower it. After a long moment, he shook it, briefly, grip firm enough to make a point. "There's been a mistake," he said. Something flickered across her face. Not surprise. Something sharper. No mistake. "The agency said," "I know what the agency said. I wrote the letter myself." That stopped him. "You?" "Yes." Lady, I don't know what kind of game you're... This isn't a game, Mr. Mercer. Her voice dropped, quiet enough that only he could hear. I answered your advertisement. I agreed to your terms. I'm here. You? He looked her up and down, making it obvious. You can't handle ranch life. You don't know what I can handle. I know you're wearing a dress that costs more than most folks around here make in a month. It's the only one I have. That caught him off guard. Before he could respond, Tom Farley appeared at his elbow, eyes wide. Well now, Tom said, tipping his hat. Ma'am, welcome to Coldwater. Elena's expression shifted, polite, practiced. Thank you, Sheriff. This is a surprise, Tom continued, shooting Colt a look that promised gossip would spread by nightfall. Colt didn't mention... We should go, Colt interrupted. He picked up her valise, heavier than it looked, and started toward the wagon without waiting to see if she'd follow. She did. Of course she did. She'd come all this way. The ride back to the ranch took 40 minutes and felt like 4 hours. Colt drove in silence, jaw tight, while Elena sat beside him with perfect posture despite the wagon's jostling. The road was rutted from spring melt, barely more than 2 tracks through scrub grass and scattered pine. How far? She asked finally. 6 miles. From town? From anything. She absorbed that. Looked out at the endless expanse of land, the mountains in the distance still capped with snow. No houses, no people, nothing but wind and sky and the knowledge that you were very, very alone. Good, she said quietly. He glanced at her. Good? I prefer isolation. You're running from something. It wasn't a question. She turned to meet his eyes, and for a moment he saw past the polished exterior to something raw underneath. Aren't you? Fair point. They didn't speak again until the ranch came into view. A simple house, a barn that needed paint, corrals, and outbuildings that had seen better days. It wasn't much, but it was honest, functional. His. Elena studied it without expression as Colt pulled the wagon to a stop. It's not what you're used to, he said. No, it's not. You can take the wagon back to town tomorrow. I'll pay your fare east. She turned to him, those dark eyes unreadable. Is that what you want? What he wanted was for this whole situation to make sense. What he wanted was for her to be the sturdy, plain woman he'd expected. Someone he could ignore. Someone who'd fit into the silence without disrupting it. What I want, he said slowly, is to know why a woman who looks like you, talks like you, answered an ad like mine. Because I needed to disappear. The honesty of it hit him like a gut punch. She didn't elaborate, didn't plead her case, just stated it as fact. And you figured Montana was far enough? I figured a man who advertises for a wife the way you did wouldn't ask too many questions. I'm asking now. I won't answer. Stalemate. Colt climbed down from the wagon, grabbed her valise. House is through there. Bedroom's upstairs, second door. I sleep in the barn. You don't have to... Tss, I do. He met her eyes. This is a business arrangement, Miss Voss. I need help running this place. You need somewhere to hide, fine, but don't expect more than that. Something in her expression hardened. I expect nothing, Mr. Mercer. That's why I'm here. She took her valise from him and walked toward the house, back straight, head high. Colt watched her go, that expensive dress already dusty at the hem, and wondered what the hell he'd just agreed to. The house was worse than Elena had braced herself for. Not dirty, Colt Mercer clearly wasn't the type to let things fall apart completely, but neglected. The kind of neglect that came from a man who'd stopped seeing his surroundings, who moved through rooms without inhabiting them. The furniture was solid but sparse. The kitchen had the basics and nothing else. Upstairs, the bedroom he'd indicated was small and plain, a bed, a washstand, a window that looked out over empty land. She set her valise down, removed her hat, and sat on the edge of the bed. It didn't creak. That was something. Through the window, she could see Colt unhitching the horses, his movements efficient and practiced. He was taller than she'd expected, broader through the shoulders, with the kind of build that came from years of hard labor. Handsome, probably, under the perpetual scowl and 3 days of stubble. Not that it mattered. Elena had learned the hard way that handsome men were the most dangerous. She stood, unpacked quickly. 2 dresses. The green one she wore, and a faded brown work dress she'd bought secondhand in Chicago. Undergarments, a single pair of boots, a photograph she didn't look at. Everything she owned fit in one valise, and that felt about right. You couldn't run carrying much weight. By the time she came back downstairs, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Colt was in the barn. The kitchen was cold. Elena found matches, lit the stove, and started taking inventory. Flour, salt, coffee, dried beans, bacon fat, potatoes in a bin that had seen better days. She could work with this. 30 minutes later, she had coffee brewing and potatoes frying. The smell brought Colt to the door, where he stopped and stared. "What are you doing?" "Making dinner." "I didn't ask you to eat." "No, you didn't." She didn't look up from the pan. "But I assume you eat." He stood there a moment longer, then moved to the wash basin, scrubbing his hands and face. When he sat down at the table, Elena set a plate in front of him, fried potatoes, bacon, coffee, and took the chair opposite with her own. They ate in silence. Colt kept his eyes on his plate, but she could feel him watching her peripherally, trying to figure her out. Good luck with that. Elena had spent the last 6 months making sure no one could figure her out. "It's good," he said finally. "Thank you. You cook often?" "Often enough." "That's not an answer." "No, it's not." His jaw tightened, but he didn't push, just finished his meal and stood. "I'll be in the barn if you need anything. Lock the door." "Why?" "Because I said so." "Is there a threat I should know about?" "No." "Then why—" "Just lock the damn door, Miss Voss." He left before she could respond, the screen door banging shut behind him. Elena watched him cross the yard, shoulders hunched against the wind, and thought, "This is going to be harder than I expected." The first week was a careful dance of avoidance. Colt rose before dawn, worked until dark, and ate his meals in silence. Elena kept the house, cooked, and stayed out of his way. They spoke only when necessary. "Need anything from town?" "No, fence is down in the north pasture. I'll fix it tomorrow." And never about anything that mattered. The town, however, had plenty to say. Elena's first trip to Coldwater came on the 3rd day, when Colt handed her a list and enough money for supplies. She took the wagon alone, grateful for the space, and arrived to find half the town waiting to get a look at her. The general store went quiet when she walked in. "Morning," the man behind the counter said. He was older, balding, with sharp eyes that cataloged everything. "You must be Mercer's new wife." "I'm staying at the Mercer Ranch, yes." "Name's Bill Hoskins. I run this place." Elena Voss said. "Voss, huh? Not Mercer?" "Not yet." That raised eyebrows. She ignored them, handed over the list, and waited while Bill filled it. 2 women whispered near the fabric section. A young man pretended to examine harnesses while stealing glances. "How you finding ranch life?" Bill asked, packing flour into a crate. "Tolerable. Colt's a hard man. Lost his wife a few years back. Hasn't been the same since." Elena's hand stilled on the counter. "I didn't ask." "No, ma'am, you didn't, but folks around here look out for each other. Colt Mercer's one of ours, even if he doesn't act like it. You heard him. You'll answer to more than just him." She met his eyes. "And if he hurts me?" Bill had the grace to look uncomfortable. "Then you come to me." "I won't." She paid, loaded the supplies, and left. The whispers followed her all the way to the wagon. Back at the ranch, she unloaded alone. Colt was fixing fence somewhere. She'd just finished putting things away when she heard hoofbeats, fast, panicked. Colt rode into the yard at a gallop, swinging down before the horse fully stopped. His face was grim. "Can you handle a foaling?" Elena's heart kicked. "What?" "The mare in the south barn, she's in trouble. Foal's breech." "I'm not—" "You said you could handle ranch work. Was that a lie?" Their eyes locked. This was a test, Elena realized. Maybe not intentional, but a test nonetheless. "Show me," she said. They ran. The mare was down when they reached her, sides heaving, eyes rolling white with panic. Elena had seen this before, years ago, another life, and the knowledge came back in a rush. "How long?" she asked. "Found her like this 20 minutes ago." "Shit." Elena stripped off her jacket. rolled up her sleeves. I need hot water, clean rags, and soap. Now. Colt didn't question, just moved. Elena knelt beside the mare, running her hands over the distended belly, feeling for position. The foal was definitely breech. She could feel the small hooves where the nose should be. Easy, girl, she murmured. We're going to help you. Colt returned with supplies. Elena scrubbed her hands and arms, then carefully, gently, began to examine the mare internally. The animal thrashed. Colt moved to hold her head, speaking low and steady. Can you turn it? He asked. I'm going to try. It took 15 minutes of careful manipulation, sweat running down Elena's face, the mare's pain radiating through every movement. But finally, she felt the shift. Got it, she gasped. It's turning. 5 minutes later, the foal slid free in a rush of fluid. Elena cleared its airway, rubbed it vigorously with rags until it coughed and gasped. The mare lifted her head, nickering softly. It's breathing, Colt said, and there was something in his voice Elena hadn't heard before. Relief. Wonder. They sat back, both filthy and exhausted, watching the foal struggle to its feet on impossibly long legs. Where'd you learn that? Colt asked. Elena wiped her face with the back of her hand, leaving a streak of blood. My father bred horses. Before. Before what? She looked at him, this hard man who'd just trusted her with something precious and almost told the truth. Almost. Before I left, she said instead. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. You did good, Miss Voss. Elena. What? If we're going to do this, whatever this is, you should call me Elena. Something shifted in his expression, not warmth exactly, but less cold. Colt, he said. They shook hands there in the bloody straw, surrounded by new life, and Elena thought, maybe I can survive this after all. Mus. The thaw came slowly. After the foaling, Colt stopped sleeping exclusively in the barn. He still kept his distance, took the downstairs bedroom, rose early, worked late. But he ate meals with her now. Talked sometimes. Nothing personal. Weather, cattle prices. Which fence needed mending next? Elena learned his rhythms. The way he drank his coffee black and scalding. How he always checked the horizon before coming inside, like he was making sure the world was still where he left it. The nightmares that woke him, evidenced by lamplight in his window at 2 a.m. She didn't ask about them. He didn't ask about hers. By the second week, they'd fallen into something resembling a routine. Elena took over the kitchen garden, coaxed half-dead plants back to life. Colt taught her to ride his gentlest horse, a buckskin mare named Daisy, who tolerated Elena's inexperience with remarkable patience. Heels down, Colt called from the fence, and stop gripping with your knees. I'm trying not to fall off. You won't fall off if you sit right. That's easy for you to say. You grew up doing this. So? So some of us had different childhoods. He tilted his head, curious. Like what? Elena circled Daisy, focusing on her seat. Like the kind where horses were expensive investments, not transportation. Your family had money. Had. Past tense. What happened to it? She pulled Daisy to a stop, met his eyes. What happened to your wife? Colt's expression shuddered immediately. That's not exactly. They stared at each other across the corral, an impasse. Then Colt pushed off the fence, walked away without another word. Elena dismounted, unsaddled Daisy herself, and tried not to feel like she'd won something hollow. That night she found a book on the kitchen table, A Rancher's Guide to Montana Weather Patterns, earmarked at a chapter on spring storms. No note, no explanation, but she understood. If you're staying, you need to know this. She was still reading when Colt came in for coffee, sleepless again. It's late, he said. So are you. He poured himself a cup, leaned against the counter. In the lamplight, she could see the toll his days took, the lines around his eyes, the way he moved like everything hurt just a little. The book helping? He asked. Yes, thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't get yourself killed by ignorance. Ever the romantic? His mouth twitched, almost a smile. You knew what you were getting into. Did I? She closed the book, looked at him directly. You're not what I expected either. What'd you expect? Someone cruel, or desperate enough not to care about cruelty. And? You're neither. You're just broken. The words hung between them. Colt's hand tightened on his cup. We're all broken, Elena. Question is whether the pieces still fit together well enough to be useful. Is that what I am? Useful? That's what we both are. He drained his coffee, set the cup in the wash basin, and left her alone with the lamplight and the truth. This wasn't a marriage, wasn't even really a partnership. It was two people trying to survive in the same space without destroying each other. She could live with that. She'd lived with worse. The letter arrived 3 weeks after Elena did. Colt found it mixed in with the supply order he'd picked up in town, addressed to Elena Voss in careful, official script. He brought it home, set it on the table without comment. Elena went pale when she saw it. You going to open it? Colt asked. No. Might be important. It's not. How do you know if you don't? I know. She picked it up with shaking hands, walked to the stove, and fed it to the flames, watched it burn without blinking. Colt said nothing. Just filed away one more piece of the puzzle that was Elena Voss. She was running from something specific, something that could still find her, something she'd rather burn than face. That night, he loaded his rifle and kept it by the door. April melted into May. The snow retreated to the highest peaks. Calves were born. The garden grew. Elena's hands, soft when she arrived, developed calluses. Her expensive dress stayed packed away. She wore the work dress daily, adding one of Colt's old shirts when the mornings were cold. They worked side by side now, mending fences, moving cattle, clearing irrigation ditches. She was stronger than she looked, stubborn as hell, and learned fast. Colt found himself explaining things without being asked. How to read the sky for weather, which plants the cattle would and wouldn't eat, where the property lines ran. Why'd you come here? He asked one afternoon while they reset a gate. Elena hammered a nail, testing its hold. To Montana? To my ad, specifically. She was quiet long enough that he thought she wouldn't answer. Because it was honest, she said finally. Every other advertisement promised love or comfort or a fresh start. Yours promised work and isolation. No lies. And that's what you wanted? Work and isolation? It's what I needed. Not the same thing. No, it's not. She moved to the next post. Colt watched her work, this woman who'd arrived overdressed and underprepared and somehow survived anyway. You ever going to tell me what you're running from? He asked. You ever going to tell me about your wife? Her name was Sarah. We had 3 years together before fever took her. There's nothing else to tell. But there was. Elena could hear it in the careful flatness of his voice. There was grief buried so deep it had fossilized, turned to something harder and more permanent than bone. I'm sorry, she said. Don't be. It's done. Loss is never done, Colt. It just changes shape. He looked at her then, really looked, and Elena knew he was seeing past her defenses to the loss she carried too. Different shape, same weight. The man you're running from, Colt said quietly. He hurt you? Elena's hammer stilled mid-swing. Yes. He coming after you? I don't know, maybe. If he does, I'll handle it. Elena, I said I'll handle it. She met his eyes, and there was steel there he recognized, the kind forged by necessity. I didn't come here to make my problems yours. Little late for that? What's that supposed to mean? Means you're on my land, under my roof. That makes it my business. I'm not your responsibility. Maybe not, but you're sure as hell not facing whatever's coming alone. They stood there in the afternoon sun, tools in hand, something unspoken shifting between them. It wasn't affection. Neither of them was ready for that. But it was solidarity, the beginning of trust. Thank you, Elena said. Colt just nodded and went back to work. The town dance happened the third Saturday of every month, held in the church hall with food, music, and enough gossip to fuel another month's worth of conversation. Colt hadn't attended since Sarah died. He had no intention of starting now. Elena, however, received a personal invitation from Mrs. Brennan. delivered with enough pointed politeness that refusal would have been an insult. "You should go," Colt said when she showed him the note. "I don't dance." "Neither do I. But they'll talk more if you don't show up than if you do." "Let them talk." "Elena." He set down the harness he was mending. "You want to make a life here? You have to be part of the town. That's how it works. I don't want to be part of anything. That's why I came." "Yeah, well, you came to the wrong place then. Small towns don't let you hide." She looked at him, frustrated. "Will you come?" "No." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to." "That's not a reason. It's the only one I've got." Elena crumpled the invitation, tossed it aside. "Fine. I won't go either." But when Saturday came, Colt watched her dress in the green traveling suit, pin up her hair, and prepare to face Coldwater society alone. Something in him twisted, guilt maybe, or recognition that he was asking her to do something he wouldn't. "Wait," he said as she headed for the wagon. She turned. "I'll drive you." "You don't have to." "I know I don't. I'm doing it anyway." The dance was exactly as terrible as Colt remembered. Too many people in too small a space, fiddle music scraping the air, children running underfoot. But Elena walked in with her head high, and Colt stayed close enough to run interference. Mrs. Brennan descended immediately. "Elena, I'm so glad you came. And Colt, my goodness, we haven't seen you in years." "Ma'am?" He tipped his hat, kept his face neutral. "You simply must introduce your wife around. There are so many people eager to meet her." "We're not," Elena started. "Not here to stay long," Colt interrupted smoothly. "Just wanted to show our faces." But showing their faces meant questions. Where did Elena come from? Back east, vague enough to be useless. How did they meet? Through an agency, true but unsatisfying. When's the wedding? Soon, a lie they both maintained. Colt watched Elena handle it all with practiced grace, deflecting, redirecting, never quite answering, but never obviously evasive. She was good at this. Too good. Whatever life she'd left behind had taught her how to navigate social warfare. An hour in, Tom Farley appeared with 2 cups of punch. "Figured you could use this." "Thanks, Tom." Colt took them both, handed one to Elena. "Quite a woman you've got there, Colt." Tom watched Elena chat with a cluster of ranchers' wives. "Handles herself well." "She does. Also way out of your league." "Tell me something I don't know." Tom laughed. "You gonna marry her for real, or is this just for show?" "Don't know yet." "Better decide soon. People are starting to notice she's not wearing a ring." Colt's jaw tightened. He hadn't thought about a ring. Hadn't thought about making any of this official beyond the paperwork that would eventually need filing. "I'll handle it," he said. "I'm sure you will." Tom clapped him on the shoulder. "For what it's worth, I think she's good for you. You've been half dead since Sarah. Maybe this one can bring you back." "I'm not looking to be brought back." "No one ever is." The fiddles started a new song, something fast and lively. Couples filled the floor. Elena appeared at Colt's elbow, slightly breathless. "Can we leave?" she asked quietly. "Thought you'd never ask." They slipped out while everyone was distracted, climbed into the wagon, and headed home under a sky full of stars. The night air was cool and clean, carrying the scent of pine and distant rain. "That was exhausting," Elena said. "Yep. Do we have to do it again?" "Probably." She groaned. "I preferred isolation." "Me too." They rode in companionable silence for a while. Then Elena said, "They think we're already married." "I know. Should we correct them?" "What's the point? We will be eventually. Paperwork's just a formality." "Is it?" Colt glanced at her. What else would it be? A promise, a choice, something more than business. "You want more than business?" She was quiet. Then, "I don't know. Do you?" He thought about that, about what more would even look like. Trust, maybe. Partnership beyond just survival. The possibility that 2 broken people might fit together better than they did apart. "Ask me again in 6 months," he said. "Why 6 months?" "Because that's how long it takes to know if someone can survive a Montana winter." Elena smiled, a real smile, the first he'd seen. "Fair enough." They pulled into the yard, tended the horses together, walked into the house that was starting to feel less empty. Colt paused at the base of the stairs. "You did good tonight," he said. "So did you, for someone who didn't want to go." "Yeah, well, turns out I don't like watching you handle things alone." "Why not?" He met her eyes. "Because we're supposed to be a team, aren't we? That's what this is?" "I thought it was a business arrangement." "Maybe it's both." Something shifted in her expression. Surprise, maybe, or hope. "Good night, Colt." "Good night, Elena." She went upstairs. He went to his room, and for the first time in 3 years, Colt Mercer thought that maybe, just maybe, he could survive something more than grief. The storm started in early June. The first one came on a Tuesday, rolling in from the north with barely an hour's warning. Colt saw the sky darken, smelled the shift in the air, and knew they had minutes, not hours. "Elena!" He was already moving toward the barn, checking latches, securing anything that could become a projectile. "Get the chickens in and shutter the windows." She didn't question, just ran. By the time the rain hit, they'd managed to get most of the livestock under cover, but the wind was already tearing at the barn roof, ripping shingles loose like they were paper. They huddled in the house while the storm raged, watching through gaps in the shutters as lightning turned the world white, then black, then white again. Thunder shook the walls. Something heavy crashed in the yard. The water trough, maybe, or part of the fence. "Does this happen often?" Elena asked. She was gripping the edge of the table, knuckles white. "This time of year? Yeah." "How often is often?" "Often enough that you stop counting." The storm lasted 2 hours. When it finally moved on, they ventured outside to survey the damage. 3 sections of fence down, the chicken coop partially collapsed. The vegetable garden looked like someone had taken a hammer to it, but the house stood, the barn stood, and the animals were safe. "Could have been worse," Colt said. Elena looked at the destruction, then at him. "How?" "Could have lost the barn, or the house, or both." "That's your measure of worse? Out here?" "Yeah." They spent the next 3 days repairing what they could. Colt rebuilt the fence while Elena salvaged what remained of the garden and patched the chicken coop with spare lumber. The work was hard, constant, and left no time for conversation beyond the practical, but something had shifted. They moved around each other with an efficiency born of necessity, anticipating needs, covering gaps. When Colt needed an extra pair of hands to hold a post steady, Elena was there. When she couldn't reach the coop's roof, he brought the ladder without being asked. "You're getting good at this," he said on the 4th day, watching her nail down new boards. "At what?" "Manual labor?" "At ranch work. At surviving." She paused, hammer raised. "Is that a compliment?" "It's an observation." "From you, that might be the same thing." He almost smiled. Almost. That night, exhausted and filthy, they sat on the porch steps sharing a bottle of whiskey Colt had been saving for no particular reason. The stars were out, brilliant and indifferent, and the night was quiet except for the usual sounds: cattle settling, an owl hunting, the wind in the grass. "Sarah used to love nights like this," Colt said suddenly. Elena went still. He never talked about Sarah. Never. "She'd make me sit out here with her for hours," he continued, voice rough, "just watching the sky. I thought it was a waste of time, all that work to do, and she wanted to stargaze." "Was it? A waste?" "No." He took a drink, passed her the bottle. "Turns out those hours were the only ones that mattered." Elena accepted the whiskey, sipped carefully. "How long were you married?" 3 years. Knew her for 5 before that." "Young sweethearts?" "Something like that. Her father owned the land adjacent to mine. We grew up together." He was quiet for a moment. "She was good, you know? Actually, genuinely good. Patient, kind, everything I wasn't." "What happened?" "Fever. Swept through town one winter. Took her in 4 days." His hands clenched. "I couldn't stop it. Couldn't fix it. Just had to watch her slip away." "I'm sorry." "Yeah, me too." He looked at her. "That's why I wanted someone practical, someone who wouldn't expect, I don't know, romance, feelings, all the things I used up on Sarah." Elena nodded slowly. "I understand." "Do you?" "Better than you think." You gonna tell me about him? The man you're running from? She handed back the whiskey. His name was Richard Ashford. We were engaged. Colt waited. She continued. He was charming, wealthy, everything my parents wanted for me. And I was young enough, stupid enough to believe the version of himself he showed me. Her voice went flat. Until I wasn't useful anymore. Until I disagreed with him in front of his associates. That's when I learned what he really was. He hit you. Among other things, she pulled her sleeves down instinctively, covering old scars. I tried to leave. He made it clear that wasn't an option, said I belonged to him, that he'd find me anywhere I went. So you came here. So I came to the one place a man like Richard would never think to look. The frontier, where women scrub floors and birth calves and don't wear silk. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. He always said I was too soft for real work. Turns out he was wrong about that too. Colt studied her profile in the starlight. This woman who'd arrived overdressed and underprepared and somehow become essential to the daily function of his life. If he comes, Colt said, I'll kill him. Elena turned to him, startled. What? You heard me. Any man who puts hands on a woman like that doesn't deserve to draw breath. He shows up here, he won't leave. Colt, I'm not asking your permission, Elena. I'm telling you how it is. They looked at each other, and something passed between them. Not love. Neither was ready for that. But something fiercer. A promise made not with words, but with presence. You're not alone anymore. Neither of us is. Thank you, she whispered. He just nodded and took another drink. The next morning brought another letter. This one was waiting in the mailbox at the end of the drive, addressed in the same careful script as the first. Elena saw it when she went to check for the supply order confirmation and felt her stomach drop. She should burn it like the last one, should destroy it without reading, but her hands opened it anyway, unfolding the expensive paper with shaking fingers. My dearest Elena, you cannot hide forever. I have people looking. It's only a matter of time. Come back willingly, and I'll forget this indiscretion. Make me come find you, and you'll regret it. You know I always keep my promises. Yours, Richard. The paper crumpled in her fist. She stood there at the end of the drive, surrounded by empty land and endless sky, and felt the trap closing anyway. He was looking. He would find her. It was just a question of when. Elena? She spun. Colt was walking toward her from the barn, concern creasing his face. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine. You're lying. She held up the letter. He's looking for me. He has people searching. Colt took the paper, read it, and his expression went dark. When did this arrive? Just now, in the mailbox. So he knows you're getting mail here, knows the general area at least. He crumpled the letter, shoved it in his pocket. We need to be careful. Keep your eyes open. Anyone unfamiliar shows up in town asking questions. I want to know about it. Colt, maybe I should leave. I don't want to bring trouble to... No. But... I said no, Elena. You're not running again. Not from this. Not from him. He gripped her shoulders, forcing her to meet his eyes. You're staying. We'll handle it together. You don't understand what he's capable of. I don't care what he's capable of. He's not taking you. The certainty in his voice, the absolute conviction, broke something open in Elena's chest. When was the last time someone had stood between her and danger? When had anyone ever chosen to stay and fight, instead of telling her to handle it herself? Why, Bites? She asked. Why does this matter to you? Colt's hands dropped. He looked away, jaw working. Because you matter. To the ranch. To... He stopped, started again. Because I don't want you to go. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even particularly romantic, but it was honest, raw, and more than Elena had expected to ever hear from this hard, closed-off man. Okay, she said. Okay? I'll stay. Relief flickered across his face, quickly hidden. Good. Now let's get to work. Fence won't fix itself. But as they walked back toward the house, Colt's hand found the small of her back, steadying her. And Elena let it stay there. The second storm hit a week later, worse than the first. This time they were ready. Livestock secured, shutters up, supplies brought in. But the wind was stronger, meaner, and halfway through the night they heard a crack like a rifle shot. "Barn," Colt said, already moving. "You can't go out there. If that roof goes, we lose everything." He was out the door before she could stop him, running through rain so thick it was like a wall. Elena watched from the window, heart in her throat, as lightning illuminated his figure fighting toward the barn. She saw him disappear inside, saw the roof swaying dangerously, and made a decision. She grabbed a rope from the mudroom, tied one end to the porch railing, and wrapped the other around her waist. Then she followed him into the storm. The wind tried to rip her away immediately. Rain blinded her, but the rope held and she pulled herself forward, hand over hand, until she reached the barn door. Inside, Colt was trying to brace a main support beam that had partially split. The horses were screaming, wild-eyed with fear. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted over the wind. "Helping! I told you to stay in the house, and I ignored you. Now tell me what to do." For a second, he just stared at her, soaked and furious and scared. Then, "Hold this. Don't let it shift." She braced herself against the beam while he worked, hammering supports into place with brutal efficiency. The roof groaned above them. Water poured through gaps. One of the horses kicked its stall door hard enough to crack the wood. "Almost there," Colt grunted. "Just hold it steady." Elena's arms were shaking, muscles screaming, but she held. Above them, the roof gave another ominous creak. "Colt!" "I know. 30 more seconds." The final nail went in. The beam settled, supported now by the makeshift bracing. Colt tested it, found it solid, and grabbed Elena's hand. "Move!" They ran for the door just as a section of roof tore away behind them, exposing the loft to the fury of the storm. Outside, Elena's rope was still tied to the porch, a fragile lifeline in the chaos. They followed it together, fighting the wind until they tumbled onto the porch and into the house. Inside, they collapsed on the floor, gasping, water pooling around them. "You could have died," Colt said. "So could you." "That's different." "How?" "Because this is my ranch, my responsibility. And I live here now. That makes it mine too." He looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression cracked open. "You're insane." "Probably. Completely reckless. Takes one to know one." "Elena," she kissed him, just leaned forward and pressed her mouth to his, tasting rain and fear and relief. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then his hands came up, tangling in her wet hair, pulling her closer. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and messy and tasted like survival. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Colt rested his forehead against hers. "We shouldn't," he said. "I know. This complicates things. Everything's already complicated. Elena, don't." She pulled back, looked at him. "Don't tell me all the reasons this is a bad idea. I know them. I've been listing them for weeks, but I just risked my life to help save your barn, and you kissed me back, so maybe we're past the point of good ideas." He laughed. Actually laughed, rough and surprised. "Yeah, maybe we are." The storm raged on outside, but inside, something had fundamentally shifted. They cleaned up in silence, changed into dry clothes, and by unspoken agreement, both ended up in the kitchen. Colt made coffee. Elena found bread and cheese. They ate standing up, too wired to sit. "The barn's going to need serious repair," Colt said finally. "I know. Could take weeks. Money I don't really have. We'll figure it out." "We?" He tested the word. "You keep saying that." "Because it's true. Whether you like it or not, we're in this together now. And if Richard shows up, then we handle him together too." Colt set down his coffee, crossed to her, and this time when he kissed her, it was slower, deliberate, a choice made with open eyes instead of in the heat of crisis. "Marry me," he said when they broke apart. Elena blinked. "What?" "Not the business arrangement version. The real thing. Be my wife. Actually, legally, completely." "Colt, we barely know each other. I know you follow me into storms. I know you saved my mare. I know you're strong and stubborn, and you make better coffee than I do." He cupped her face. "I know that for the first time in 3 years, I don't feel like I'm just going through the motions. That's enough." "Is it?" "Yeah, it is." Elena searched his face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, found none. This is crazy. So's living alone out here. So's answering an ad from a stranger. We've already done crazy. Might as well commit to it. What about Sarah? His expression softened. Sarah's gone. I loved her, and I always will. But she's gone. And you're here. And maybe that means something. Or maybe it means we're both desperate and making terrible decisions. Probably that too. He smiled and it transformed his face. But I'd rather make terrible decisions with you than good ones alone. Elena felt tears prick her eyes, unexpected and unwelcome. You're serious. As a heart attack. We'll fight. Guaranteed. I have nightmares and trust issues, and I'm still terrified Richard will find me. I have nightmares too, and I'm stubborn as hell, and I will personally shoot anyone who tries to take you. He pressed his forehead to hers. Marry me, anyway. She should say no, should point out all the logical reasons this was a mistake, should protect herself from the possibility of loss, of disappointment, of all the ways this could fall apart. Instead, she whispered, yes. His kiss was answer and promise and relief all at once. When he lifted her, she wrapped her legs around his waist, and he carried her upstairs to his room. Not the guest room she'd been using, but his. They fell into bed together, shedding wet clothes, finding warmth in each other while the storm tried to tear the world apart outside. Afterward, tangled together under blankets, Elena traced the scars on his back, old injuries from years of ranch work, and said, we're really doing this. Seems like it. Tom's going to have a field day. Let him. Whole town's going to talk anyway. When? Soon as we can arrange it. No point waiting. She was quiet for a moment, then, Colt? Yeah? I'm scared. He pulled her closer. Me too. Of Richard? Of screwing this up, of not being what you need. You're exactly what I need. That's the terrifying part. He kissed her temple. We'll figure it out. We're good at that. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time since arriving in Montana, Elena didn't dream of running. The morning brought damage assessment. The barn roof needed complete replacement in 2 sections. 3 more fence lines were down. The chicken coop had lost its door entirely, and the chickens had scattered across creation. Could have been worse, Colt said, surveying the wreckage. Elena, chasing an escaped hen, shot him a look. You keep saying that, because it's true. Your definition of worse is terrifying. He caught the hen, handed it to her. Welcome to Montana. They worked all day gathering livestock, doing triage on the barn. By evening, they were exhausted, filthy, and no closer to solving the bigger problems. The roof repair would cost money they didn't have. The fences could wait, but not forever. I have some jewelry, Elena said over dinner. From before. We could sell it. Colt shook his head. No. Why not? It's just sitting in my bag. Because it's yours. I'm not financing this ranch by selling your past. It's just things, Colt. They don't mean anything. They mean you had a life before this. Before me. I'm not taking that. She reached across the table, took his hand. That life almost destroyed me. I don't want it back, but I do want this roof fixed. Elena, please, let me help. Let me contribute something real. He looked at their joined hands, jaw working. Finally, half. We sell half. The rest stays yours. Deal. The next day they rode to town together. Elena retrieved the jewelry from where she'd hidden it. A diamond necklace, pearl earrings, 2 rings that Richard had given her. She kept 1 ring, a simple sapphire that had belonged to her grandmother. The rest went to the assayer, who nearly fell over when he saw the quality. This is easily $2,000 worth, he said. Colt and Elena exchanged glances. That was more than the ranch made in a good year. We'll take $1,500, Colt said. Fair price for fast sale. They walked out with more money than either had seen in months. Enough for the barn roof, new fencing materials, supplies for the winter ahead, and a little left over for emergencies. You okay? Colt asked, watching Elena's face. I'm fine. Better than fine. She looked at the money, then at him. This feels right. Using something from that life to build this one. Still want to marry me? More than ever. They filed the paperwork that afternoon at the county office. A simple civil contract that made it legal. No ceremony, no fuss, just their names on paper and Tom Farley as witness, grinning like he'd won a bet. About damn time, Tom said, shaking Colt's hand. You planning on telling her you've been half in love with her since she saved that foal? Shut up, Tom. Or that you threatened to shoot me if I flirted with her? I did not. You absolutely did. Night of the dance. Exact words were, she's taken and I'll shoot anyone who forgets it. Elena laughed, surprised and delighted. Did you really? Colt's ears went red. Tom exaggerates. I really don't. Tom clapped him on the shoulder. Congratulations, you crazy kids. Dinner's on me. They ate at the town's only restaurant. Nothing fancy, just stew and bread, while half of Coldwater found excuses to walk past and sneak glances at the couple who'd finally made it official. Mrs. Brennan stopped by to offer enthusiastic congratulations and a slightly used set of dish towels. Bill Hoskins sent over a bottle of wine he claimed was for special occasions. They're invested, Elena said, watching the parade of well-wishers. Small towns. Colt shrugged, but he didn't look displeased. You like it. Admit it. I tolerate it. Colt Mercer, you're a fraud. You pretend to be this lone wolf, but you care what they think. I care that they don't gossip about my wife. Your wife. Elena tested the words. That's going to take some getting used to. Yeah. He reached across the table, took her hand. Me too. They drove home under a sky so clear it hurt to look at, stars scattered like someone had thrown diamonds across black velvet. The ranch appeared in the distance, small and solid against the endless land. Home, Elena said softly. Colt squeezed her hand. Yeah. That night they made love slowly, taking time to learn each other properly. After, lying in the dark, Elena said, I need to tell you something. Colt tensed. Okay. The letters from Richard, they're not going to stop. He meant what he said about finding me. I know. And if he does, when he does, it won't be pretty. He doesn't lose gracefully. Neither do I. She rolled to face him. I'm serious, Colt. He's dangerous, wealthy enough to buy whatever he wants, including people. If he shows up here with the law claiming I stole from him or, did you? No. But he'll say I did, and he'll have papers to prove it. Colt was quiet, thinking. Then we'll need proof of our own. Witnesses. Documentation that you've been here legally, working the ranch, fulfilling a contract. The marriage certificate? That's a start. But we need more. Letters from town folk. Testimony that you've been contributing, not just hiding. He stroked her hair. We'll build a case. Show that you're a resident of Montana, married to a citizen, working an honest living. Make it harder for him to claim anything. You've thought about this. I've thought about keeping you safe. That covers a lot of ground. Elena kissed him, slow and grateful. Thank you. For what? For not suggesting I hide. For treating me like I'm strong enough to fight. You are strong enough. You just needed someone to fight with you. They fell asleep that way, planning defenses, building walls of paperwork and community around the fragile thing they were trying to protect. The barn roof took 2 weeks to repair. Colt hired help from town, 3 men who showed up at dawn and worked until dark, replacing shingles and reinforcing beams. Elena kept them fed, hauling lunch and coffee out to the work site, and slowly earned their respect with her willingness to climb ladders and hand up supplies. Your woman's tougher than she looks, one of them told Colt. Yeah, she is. You planning on keeping her? Till death or disaster, whichever comes first. The man laughed. Out here, that's the same thing. When the roof was finally done, solid and sound, Colt paid them with money from the jewelry sale and watched them ride back toward town. Then he and Elena stood in the barn, looking up at the new beams. We did it, she said. We did. What's next? He pulled her close, rested his chin on her head. Next, we survive the summer, get the hay in, prepare for winter, build up the herd. He paused. Live. Just live? It's harder than it sounds. That she laughed, and the sound echoed in the rafters. With you, everything's harder than it sounds. You complaining? Not even a little bit. They walked back to the house hand in hand, and Elena thought, this is it. This is what I was running toward, not away from. A life built from broken pieces, a home made of honesty and hard work, a man who saw her scars and stayed anyway. Behind them, the barn stood strong against the sky. Ahead, the house waited, windows golden with lamplight. And around them, Montana stretched in all directions, vast and unforgiving and exactly where she needed to be. The summer heat came in waves that turned the air thick and heavy, the kind of heat that made work feel like punishment. Colt and Elena moved through their days in a rhythm that had become second nature, feeding animals before dawn, repairing what broke, preparing for the harsh months ahead. The ranch demanded everything, and they gave it willingly, together. But underneath the routine, tension simmered. 3 more letters had arrived, each one more specific than the last. Richard knew she was in Montana now, knew about Coldwater. The most recent letter had mentioned the ranch itself, described the house in detail that made Elena's blood run cold. "He's had someone here," she said, holding the letter with shaking hands. "Someone's been watching us." Colt took the paper, read it, and his expression went granite hard. "When?" "I don't know. Could have been any time. We're out working all day. The house is empty. Anyone could—" "Hey," he gripped her shoulders. "Look at me. We're going to handle this." "How? He knows where I am. It's only a matter of time before—" "Before what? Before he shows up and I put a bullet in him?" "Colt, you can't just shoot him. He'll have the law on his side, papers saying I'm his property, or I stole from him, or—" "You're not his property. You're my wife. That's law, too." Elena pulled away, pacing. "You don't understand how men like Richard operate. They don't fight fair. They buy judges, bribe sheriffs, twist everything until you're the criminal and they're the victim. Then we get ahead of it." Colt was already moving, pulling out paper and pen. "We document everything, every letter, every threat. We get statements from people in town who've seen you working, contributing. We build a case that you're not some runaway thief, but a married woman living an honest life. And if that's not enough—" His eyes met hers, dark and certain. "Then I do what I said I'd do. He tries to take you. He doesn't leave this ranch alive." The certainty in his voice should have scared her. Instead, it felt like the first solid ground she'd stood on in months. Someone willing to fight for her, not just with words, but with action. Someone who saw her as worth protecting. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." They spent the next 2 days riding into town, talking to anyone who'd known Elena since she arrived. Mrs. Brennan wrote a glowing letter about Elena's character and work ethic. Bill Hoskins documented every purchase she'd made, every interaction, proving she'd been contributing to the local economy. Tom Farley, in his capacity as sheriff, filed an official report noting her marriage to Colt and her legal residence in Montana Territory. "This should help," Tom said, signing the final document. "But Elena, I need you to understand something. If this Richard fellow shows up with federal papers claiming you're wanted for theft or fraud, my hands might be tied. I know. I'm not saying I'd turn you over without a fight, but I'm also saying you might want to have a backup plan." Colt's jaw tightened. "What kind of backup plan?" "The kind where she's not here when he arrives. The kind where she's got somewhere safe to go if things turn sideways." "I'm not running again," Elena said flatly. "I'm done running. Sometimes running's the smart play." "Not this time." Tom looked between them, sighed. "You're both stubborn as mules, fine, but when this goes bad, and it will go bad, don't say I didn't warn you." They left town with their documentation bundled carefully, insurance against the storm they knew was coming. On the ride home, Elena was quiet, staring out at the passing landscape. "You're thinking too loud," Colt said. "I'm thinking about what happens if he brings men, armed men. Then we'll be ready. Colt, I can't ask you to risk your life for—" "You're not asking. I'm offering. There's a difference." "Why? Why does this matter so much to you?" He was quiet for a long moment, the only sound the wagon wheels and the horses' hooves. Then, "Because you're the first thing in 3 years that's made me want to wake up in the morning. Because you fight back against everything this land throws at you, and you don't quit. Because when I think about someone taking you away, He stopped, jaw working. "I can't. That's all. I just can't." Elena felt something crack open in her chest, warm and terrifying. "Colt? Don't say anything. Just know that I mean it." She leaned against his shoulder, felt his arm come around her, solid and sure. Whatever was coming, they'd face it together. That had to be enough. The first real cold snap hit in late August, unseasonable and vicious. Colt woke before dawn to find frost on the windows and the thermometer reading below 40. "Too early for this," he muttered, pulling on extra layers. Elena was already up, stoking the fire. "How bad?" "Bad enough. We need to move the cattle to lower pasture today. If another front comes through, they'll be in trouble up high." They worked through the morning, driving the herd down from the summer grazing lands. The cattle were stubborn, resistant to change, and it took both of them plus 2 borrowed ranch hands to get the job done. By afternoon, Elena's hands were raw from handling rope, her legs aching from hours in the saddle. "You good?" Colt called. "I'm fine. You look dead on your feet." "So do you." He grinned, rare and genuine. "Yeah, but I'm used to it." They got the last of the cattle settled just as the sky opened up, rain mixed with sleet that stung like needles. Racing back toward the house, they were both soaked through by the time they reached the barn. Colt took care of the horses while Elena ran for the house, but halfway across the yard she saw it. A man, standing on their porch. She stopped dead, heart hammering. He was tall, well-dressed in a way that screamed city money, with dark hair and a face she'd hoped never to see again. Richard. He smiled when he saw her, and it was the smile from nightmares, charming on the surface, cruel underneath. "Hello, Elena." She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. 3 months of building a new life, and here he was, destroying it with his presence. "You look different," Richard continued, descending the porch steps. "Harder. Ranch life suits you, I suppose, though it's rather beneath you, don't you think? Get off my property." Her voice came out steadier than she felt. "Your property? Darling, this hovel belongs to some rancher you've apparently convinced to marry you. Rather desperate of you, wasn't it? Throwing yourself at the first man who'd have you?" "I said get off my property." "Or what? You'll call for help? From whom? Your husband?" He laughed. "Where's the brave rancher who thinks he can steal what's mine?" "Right here." Richard turned. Colt stood 10 feet away, rifle in hand, pointed directly at Richard's chest. Water dripped from his hat brim, but his hands were steady. "Mr. Mercer, I presume," Richard said smoothly. "Richard Ashford. I've come for my fiancée." "She's not your fiancée. She's my wife." "A marriage made under false pretenses, I'm afraid. Elena is wanted for theft. She stole several valuable items from my home before fleeing. I have the paperwork right here." He produced documents from his coat. "Federal warrants. I'm well within my rights to reclaim her and my property." "Those papers worth your life?" Colt asked quietly. Richard's smile faltered. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm informing you. You've got 10 seconds to get on your horse and ride out. After that, I shoot. You can't. 1. This is absurd. 2. I have the law on my side. 3. Richard's eyes darted between Colt and Elena, calculating. "You're making a mistake, both of you. I have men in town. If I don't return, they'll come looking. 4. Elena, be reasonable. Come with me now, and I'll forgive this entire episode. We can go home. Forget this unpleasantness. This is my home," Elena said, and she moved to stand beside Colt. "And you need to leave." 5. Richard's composure cracked. "You think you can hide here? Playing house with this nobody? I'll destroy you, both of you. I'll burn this pathetic ranch to the ground, ruin you financially, make sure neither of you ever— 6. Fine. Richard backed toward his horse, rage distorting his features. "But this isn't over. I'll be back with the sheriff, with federal marshals, with whatever it takes. You can't protect her forever, Mercer. She's coming back with me, whether she wants to or not." 7. Richard mounted quickly, his horse dancing nervously. "You'll regret this." 8. He spurred his horse and rode off. But the malice in his backward glance promised this was far from finished. Colt didn't lower the rifle until Richard disappeared over the rise. Then he turned to Elena, who was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "You okay?" he asked. "No. Yes. I don't know." She wrapped her arms around herself. "He's going to come back. With men, with papers, with— Let him." Colt set the rifle down, pulled her against him. "We're ready. You don't know him. He always wins. Always. He hasn't met me before." Despite everything, Elena laughed. A brittle, broken sound. You're insane. You keep saying that like it's news. They stood there in the rain, holding each other while the temperature dropped and the sky darkened. Finally, Colt said, "We need to prepare, tonight. If he's got men in town, they might come before morning." "What do we do?" "We fortify, lock everything down, load the spare rifles, and we don't sleep." They worked through the evening, boarding windows, checking ammunition, setting tripwires at the main approaches to the house. Elena moved mechanically, muscle memory from her childhood. Her father had been paranoid about security, always preparing for threats that never came. Now those lessons felt prophetic. "You've done this before," Colt observed, watching her rig a simple alarm system with tin cans and wire. "My father was convinced someone would try to steal his horses. He taught me how to protect them." Smart man. Paranoid man. But yes, smart too. By midnight, the house was as secure as they could make it. Colt positioned rifles at strategic windows. Elena prepared supplies, water, food, bandages in case things went bad. They sat in the dark kitchen, listening to the night sounds, waiting. "This is my fault," Elena said quietly. "I brought this to your door." "No, he brought it. There's a difference. I should have kept running. Should have gone to California or Oregon or—" "Elena." Colt reached across the table, took her hand. "Listen to me. What you should have done is exactly what you did. You found a place to stand and fight. That takes more courage than running." "It doesn't feel courageous. It feels stupid." "Same thing sometimes." She laughed despite herself. "How are you so calm?" "I'm not. I'm terrified. But I learned a long time ago that fear and action aren't mutually exclusive. You feel the fear and you move anyway." "Sarah teach you that?" "No, Montana did." They kept vigil until dawn, but no one came. The sun rose on an empty yard, frost glittering on the grass, and Colt finally allowed himself to relax slightly. "Maybe he decided it wasn't worth it," Elena said, but she didn't sound convinced. "Maybe. Or maybe he's planning something bigger." "That's comforting. Wasn't meant to be." The answer came 3 days later. Tom Farley rode out to the ranch, his face grim. "You've got trouble," he said without preamble. "Richard Ashford showed up at my office this morning with a federal marshal and papers claiming Elena's a thief and a fugitive. They want to take her back east for trial." Elena's stomach dropped. "No. I stalled them. Said I needed to verify the paperwork, do some checking. But Colt, these documents look legitimate. Federal warrants signed by a judge in Philadelphia, claiming she stole jewelry and cash totaling over $5,000. Those were her own belongings, Colt said. Gifts from him that became hers. You got proof of that? She has... He looked at Elena. The sapphire ring, you said it was your grandmother's. It was. Any way to prove it? Elena thought frantically. There might be. My grandmother had it inscribed. Inside the band. Her initials and my grandfather's. Get it, Tom said. If we can prove even one piece was legitimately yours, it undermines his whole case. Elena ran upstairs, retrieved the ring from its hiding place, and brought it down. Tom examined it carefully, then pulled out a magnifying glass. I'll be damned, he murmured. Clear as day, MV and JH. Margaret Voss and James Harrison, Elena confirmed. My grandparents. This helps, but it's not enough to counter a federal warrant. Tom looked between them. The marshal wants to take her tomorrow. I bought you 24 hours, maybe less. Then we use it, Colt said. Elena, what else did you take from Richard's house? Nothing. Just my clothes and the jewelry that was mine. Can anyone verify that? Servants? Other staff? Maybe. His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, she knew which pieces were mine, but I don't know if she'd speak against him. Worth a try. Colt was already moving. Tom, can you send a telegram? See if this Mrs. Chen will provide a statement? I can try. But even if she does, it'll take time. Time you don't have. Then we make time. After Tom left, Colt and Elena stood in the kitchen, the weight of the situation pressing down like a physical thing. I should go, Elena said. Face whatever charges he's made, fight them in court. With what money? What lawyer? Elena, the moment you step foot outside Montana's borders, you're on his territory. He'll bury you. And if I stay, he'll burn your ranch down, ruin you. I heard what he said. Let him try. Colt, no. He gripped her arms, forcing her to meet his eyes. We don't give up. We don't surrender. We fight until there's nothing left to fight with. And then what? Then we figure out what comes next, together. The determination in his voice steadied her. Elena took a shaky breath and nodded. Okay, together. They spent the day gathering everything they could, documents, testimonies, proof of Elena's contributions to the ranch and the community. Mrs. Brennan wrote another letter. Bill Hoskins provided receipts showing Elena had sold jewelry legitimately, paying taxes on the transaction. Even the ranch hands who'd helped fix the barn provided statements about her character. By evening, they had a file thick with evidence. It wouldn't stop a federal warrant, but it might slow it down, might create enough doubt to force a real investigation instead of just taking Richard's word as gospel. It's not enough, Elena said, staring at the papers. It's what we've got. That night, they didn't even pretend to sleep. They sat up in the bedroom, windows open to catch any sound, rifles within reach. Colt held Elena close, her back against his chest, and they watched the stars wheel overhead. Tell me about Sarah, Elena said quietly. What do you want to know? What she was like, really like, not just the good parts. Colt was quiet for a long moment. She was stubborn, couldn't admit when she was wrong about something, even when it was obvious. And she had a temper, not violent, but she could freeze you out for days if you pissed her off. Sounds human. She was. That's what I miss most, I think. Not the perfect memory of her, but the real woman. The one who burned dinner and swore about it. Who fell asleep reading and denied it when I woke her up. Who, his voice caught, who died scared and in pain, and I couldn't do anything to stop it. Elena turned in his arms, cupped his face. It wasn't your fault. I know that here, he tapped his head. But here, his hand moved to his chest. That's a different story. Is that why you wanted someone practical? Someone you wouldn't love? Yeah, seemed safer. How's that working out for you? He smiled, sad and genuine. Terrible. You're nothing like what I ordered. Sorry to disappoint. You didn't. He kissed her forehead. You scared the hell out of me instead. Because? Because loving you means I could lose you, and I don't think I'd survive that twice. The words hung between them, raw and honest. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. You love me? Yeah. Probably have for a while now. Just too stubborn to admit it. Even though I'm broken? Even though I brought all this trouble? Especially because of that. You're a fighter, Elena. You don't quit. That's... He stopped, swallowed hard. That's everything. She kissed him then, tasting salt from tears she didn't remember shedding. I love you too. I didn't want to, tried not to, but we're both idiots who fell in love anyway. Something like that. They made love slowly, desperately, like it might be the last time. And when it was over, they held each other in the darkness and waited for dawn. The marshal arrived at noon. Elena saw the riders coming from a mile away. 3 of them, official and ominous. Richard wasn't with them, probably staying in town where it was safe and civilized. It's time, she said. Colt stood, straightened his shoulders. Remember the plan? I remember. They walked out onto the porch together as the riders approached. The marshal was older, weathered, with eyes that had seen too much to be easily fooled. The 2 men with him were deputies, hands resting casually on their sidearms. Colt Mercer? The marshal asked. That's me. Marshal William Grant. I have a warrant for the arrest of Elena Voss on charges of theft. Is she here? She is. She's also Elena Mercer now, my wife. Grant's eyebrows rose. Is that so? When did this marriage take place? 6 weeks ago. We have the certificate. May I see it? Colt produced the document. Grant examined it carefully, then looked at Elena. Ma'am, do you have anything to say about these charges? They're false. The items Richard Ashford claims I stole were my own property. Gifts that became legally mine, and family heirlooms that were always mine. You have proof of this? Elena produced the ring, the inscription clearly visible. This was my grandmother's. Inside is inscribed with her initials and my grandfather's. I also have receipts from selling other pieces here in Coldwater, all documented and taxed legally. Grant examined the ring, then the receipts. His expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. This is one item. The warrant lists several, all of which have similar provenance if you'd care to investigate rather than just taking a wealthy man's word. One of the deputies shifted uncomfortably. Grant shot him a look, then turned back to Elena. Ma'am, I understand your position, but I have federal papers here that require me to bring you in for questioning at minimum. You can come willingly, or what? Colt's voice was quiet but edged with steel. You'll drag her off my property against her will? If necessary, yes. Over my dead body. The deputies' hands moved to their guns. Grant held up a hand, stopping them. Mr. Mercer, threatening a federal officer is a crime. So is kidnapping, which is what this is. The law disagrees. Then the law's wrong. They stood at an impasse, tension thick enough to choke on. Elena's heart hammered. This was it, the moment where everything either held together or fell apart completely. Then hoofbeats sounded from the road. Everyone turned. Tom Farley rode up fast, waving a telegram. Grant, hold on. The marshal frowned. Sheriff Farley, what's this about? Got a response from Philadelphia. Tom dismounted, breathing hard. Mrs. Chen, Richard Ashford's former housekeeper. She's willing to testify that Elena Voss took only items that belonged to her and nothing more. She's also willing to testify that Ashford has a history of threatening women who try to leave him, using legal systems to punish them. Grant took the telegram, read it. His expression darkened. This is serious. Gets better. Mrs. Chen says 2 other women have filed similar complaints against Ashford. Both times he used theft charges to force them back, then dropped the charges once they returned. Pattern of behavior that makes these current charges look like retaliation, not justice. The marshal looked at Richard's warrant, then at Elena, then back at the telegram. Finally, he said, This changes things. It should, Tom agreed. At minimum, it warrants a full investigation before arresting anyone. Grant was quiet for a long moment. Then he folded the warrant, tucked it into his coat. Mrs. Mercer, you're not under arrest. Yet. But I will be conducting a thorough investigation into these claims, both yours and Mr. Ashford's. Until that's complete, I expect you to remain in Montana territory. I'm not going anywhere, Elena said. See that you don't. He nodded to Tom. Sheriff, thank you for the information. I'll be in touch. The 3 men rode off, leaving Colt, Elena, and Tom standing in the yard. Is it over? Elena asked, almost afraid to hope. Not even close, Tom said. But it's a start. Grant's honest. He'll do the investigation right. And with Mrs. Chen's testimony, Richard's case just got a lot weaker. How did you find her? Colt asked. Sent telegrams to every employment agency in Philadelphia, asking if anyone knew a Mrs. Chen who'd worked for the Ashfords. Got lucky. She'd registered with one looking for new work after she quit. Told me she'd been waiting for years for someone to ask about Richard's behavior. Said she'd testify in a heartbeat. Elena felt tears streaming down her face. Thank you. I don't know how to... You don't have to thank me. Just live your life, Elena. Be happy. That's thanks enough. After Tom left, Colt and Elena stood in the yard, shell-shocked and exhausted. We're okay, Colt said, like he couldn't quite believe it. For now. For now's enough. They went inside, and for the first time in days, Elena felt like she could breathe properly. The threat wasn't gone. Richard would fight back, would try other angles, but they'd held the line. They'd survived the first real test. That night, wrapped in Colt's arms, Elena whispered, I'm afraid to hope. Hope anyway. What if it doesn't work out? What if he finds another way? Then we fight that too. However many times it takes. You really believe that? I have to, because the alternative is unthinkable. She held him tighter, this man who'd become her anchor in every storm. Outside, the Montana night was clear and cold, stars burning holes in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new threats. But tonight, they were safe. Tonight, they were together. And for now, that was enough. The investigation took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of waiting, of waking every morning wondering if today would be the day Richard found a new angle, a new way to tear everything apart. Elena threw herself into ranch work with an intensity that bordered on obsession, as if she could outrun her fear by moving fast enough. "You're going to work yourself to death," Colt said one morning, finding her in the barn before sunrise, already mucking stalls. "I need to keep busy." "There's busy, and then there's whatever this is." "I'm fine." "Elena." He took the pitchfork from her hands. "You're running on maybe 4 hours of sleep. You barely eat. This isn't fine." "What do you want me to do? Sit around and wait for the sky to fall?" "I want you to breathe, to trust that we did everything we could. And if it's not enough, then we deal with it when it comes. But killing yourself with work now doesn't change anything except make you miserable." She leaned against the stall door, suddenly exhausted. "I don't know how to just wait. Every time a rider comes down the road, I think it's over. Every time I hear hoofbeats, my heart stops." Colt pulled her close, and she let herself lean into him, drawing strength from his solid presence. "I know, but you're not alone in this anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together, remember?" "Together," she whispered. "I'm still getting used to that." "Me too." The first week of October brought news. Marshal Grant returned with a thick file and an expression that gave nothing away. They met him in Tom's office, and Elena gripped Colt's hand so hard her knuckles went white. "I've completed my investigation," Grant said, settling into a chair. "Spoke to Mrs. Chen at length. Also tracked down the 2 other women she mentioned who'd filed complaints against Richard Ashford. Their stories align with yours, Mrs. Mercer. Pattern of control, financial manipulation, and misuse of the legal system to enforce compliance." Elena's breath caught. And I've determined there's insufficient evidence to pursue charges against you. The jewelry in question appears to have been legitimately yours, either through gift or inheritance. Mr. Ashford's claims are, at best, exaggerated. At worst, deliberately fraudulent. "So she's free?" Colt asked. "She's free. I've sent my report to the Philadelphia court. The warrant's been vacated." Elena felt her legs go weak. Colt's arm around her waist was the only thing keeping her upright. "Just like that?" "Just like that. Though I should warn you, Mr. Ashford is not taking this well. He's filed complaints against me, against Sheriff Farley, against half the territory. None of them will stick, but he's making noise." "Let him," Colt said, "as long as he can't touch Elena." "He can't. Legally, you're in the clear, Mrs. Mercer. My advice? Stay that way. Don't give him any ammunition to come after you again." After Grant left, Elena stood in the middle of Tom's office, trying to process what had just happened. 6 months of running, 3 months of fear, and suddenly it was just over. "I can't believe it," she said. "Believe it." Tom was grinning. "You're free. Both of you." Colt pulled her into a fierce hug, and Elena felt something inside her finally unclenched. The constant tension she'd been carrying since Philadelphia, the weight of always looking over her shoulder, it lifted and she could breathe fully for the first time in months. "We should celebrate," Tom said. "Drinks at the saloon. My treat." "Rain check," Colt said. "I want to take my wife home." The ride back to the ranch felt different. The same road, the same landscape, but everything looked brighter somehow. Elena couldn't stop the smile spreading across her face. "You're grinning like an idiot," Colt observed. "So are you." "Yeah, well, my wife's not a wanted criminal anymore. That's worth grinning about." "Your wife." Elena tested the words. "I'm really your wife now. Not just on paper, not just running from something, but actually really yours." "You were always mine. Paper just made it official." They reached the ranch as the sun started its descent, painting everything gold and orange. Colt helped Elena down from the wagon, but instead of heading to the house, he led her to the pasture where the horses grazed. "What are we doing?" she asked. "Something I should have done months ago." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple silver with a small diamond, nothing like the ostentatious jewelry Richard had given her. "I know it's not much," Colt said, "but I bought it with money from our ranch, our work. Figured it meant more than something expensive I couldn't really afford." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Colt, I'm not good with words, never have been. But I need you to know that you're not just convenient, not just someone who happened to answer an ad. You're—" He stopped, cleared his throat. "You're everything." You make this place feel like home instead of just a house I sleep in. You make me want to build something instead of just survive. So if you'll have me, actually have me. I'd like to do this right. We're already married. I know, but I'm asking anyway. Will you stay? Not because you're running or hiding or have nowhere else to go, but because you want to? Elena looked at him, this hard man who'd slowly revealed himself to be anything but. Who'd fought for her, protected her, loved her despite all the logical reasons not to. Yes, she said, 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Then he kissed her there in the pasture with the horses as witnesses and the Montana sky watching over them. That night, they made love with a freedom that hadn't existed before. No fear hanging over them, no threat waiting in the wings. Just two people who'd found each other against all odds and decided to build something worth keeping. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets, Elena traced patterns on Colt's chest. What happens now? Now we live. We work the ranch, get through winter, maybe expand the herd in spring. That's it? Just normal life? Is that not enough? She thought about it. A year ago, normal life had meant elaborate parties and meaningless conversations, performance and pretense. Now it meant early mornings and hard work, honest sweat, and earned rest. She'd traded silk for cotton, ballrooms for barns, and somehow gained everything that mattered. It's more than enough, she said. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that felt earned rather than imposed. Fall work intensified as they prepared for winter, cutting hay, reinforcing buildings, stocking supplies. Elena had learned enough to be genuinely useful, and they worked side by side with an efficiency that came from knowing each other's rhythms. You're getting strong, Colt observed one afternoon, watching her haul a feed sack that would have defeated her months ago. Don't sound so surprised. Not surprised, impressed. That might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me. I say nice things. You say practical things. Occasionally they're also nice. He grinned, grabbed another sack. Fair point. Mrs. Brennan visited one Saturday with fresh bread and thinly veiled curiosity about the marshal's investigation. Elena handled her questions with more grace than she would have managed months ago, deflecting without being rude. You've settled in well, Mrs. Brennan said approvingly. The town wasn't sure about you at first, but you've proven yourself. I wasn't aware I was being tested. Dear, we're always testing newcomers, especially ones who arrive as mysteriously as you did. But you've worked hard, contributed to the community, and clearly made Colt happier than he's been in years. That counts for something. After she left, Elena found Colt in the barn. Did you know the whole town was judging me? Of course. Small towns judge everyone. And you didn't warn me? Would it have changed anything? She thought about it. No, probably not. Exactly. You would have either earned their respect or you wouldn't. Being told you were being evaluated would have just made you self-conscious. You're annoyingly practical sometimes. You say that like you didn't know it already. The first real snow came in late October, a light dusting that wouldn't last but served as warning of what was coming. Colt stood on the porch watching it fall, and Elena joined him with 2 cups of coffee. Beautiful, she said. Dangerous. Why can't it be both? Because beauty out here usually comes with teeth. She elbowed him gently. You're such an optimist. I'm a realist. There's a difference. Colt Mercer, are you telling me you don't see any beauty in this? He looked at her, snowflakes catching in her dark hair, eyes bright in the cold air. I see beauty, just also see the work it's going to create. Romance truly isn't dead. He laughed, pulled her close. You knew what you were getting into. Did I? Because I seem to remember being promised isolation and hard work. Nobody mentioned I'd fall in love with a pessimistic rancher with a habit of stating the obvious. I'm not pessimistic. I'm prepared. Same thing. Definitely not the same thing. They stood there arguing good-naturedly while the snow fell, and Elena thought, this is what happiness looks like. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but standing on a porch with someone who drives you crazy in all the best ways, drinking coffee and watching snow fall on land you've earned the right to call home. November brought harder work and colder temperatures. They moved cattle to winter pastures, reinforced the barn against serious snow, and stocked enough supplies to survive being snowed in for weeks if necessary. Elena learned to read the sky like Colt did, understanding the difference between clouds that meant light snow and clouds that promised a real storm. "You're getting good at this," Colt said one evening, watching her predict the next day's weather based on wind direction and cloud patterns. "I have a good teacher. I'm an adequate teacher. You're a quick learner. There's a difference. Will you ever just accept a compliment?" "Probably not." She threw a pillow at him. He caught it, grinning, and tackled her onto the bed. They wrestled like children, laughing breathlessly, until wrestling turned to kissing and kissing turned to something slower and more serious. Later, catching her breath, Elena said, "I'm happy." "Yeah? Yeah, is that weird? Given everything?" "Not weird. Maybe rare, but not weird. I keep waiting for something to go wrong." "Something probably will. That's life. But we'll handle it. Just like that? Just like that." 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Elena woke feeling off. Not sick exactly, just strange. She made it through morning chores, but by afternoon she was exhausted, muscles aching like she'd worked twice as hard as usual. "You okay?" Colt asked, finding her sitting on a hay bale instead of working. "Just tired." "You're never tired." "I am today." He studied her with concern. "Maybe you're coming down with something. Why don't you go rest? I can handle the rest of this." She wanted to argue, but didn't have the energy. "Okay." Inside, she collapsed into bed and slept 14 hours straight. When she woke, Colt was sitting beside her with worry etched across his face. "How long was I out?" she asked. "Since yesterday afternoon. It's morning now. I was about to ride for the doctor." "I'm fine. Just needed sleep." "Elena, that's not normal." "Maybe I'm just worn out. We've been working hard, Buzz." But the fatigue continued. 3 days later, she started getting sick in the mornings. By the 4th day, Colt insisted on riding to town for the doctor, despite her protests. Dr. Sarah Matthews was a practical woman in her 50s who'd seen everything frontier life could throw at a person. She examined Elena thoroughly, while Colt paced outside like a caged animal. "Well?" Elena asked when the examination finished. Dr. Matthews smiled. "You're pregnant. About 6 weeks along, I'd estimate." The world tilted. "What?" "Pregnant, expecting, with child, however you want to phrase it." "But I didn't think." "These things happen, especially when two people who are clearly fond of each other share a bed regularly." Elena's hands went to her stomach, flat and unchanged. A baby. She was carrying Colt's baby. "Are you sure?" she asked. "Quite sure. The symptoms align perfectly. Fatigue, morning sickness, sensitivity to certain smells. You'll start showing in another month or 2. "What do I do?" "Same as any expectant mother. Eat well, rest when you need it, avoid heavy lifting in the later months. You're young and healthy. Barring complications, you should be fine." When Colt was finally allowed back in, he took one look at Elena's face and went pale. "What's wrong? Is it serious?" "I'm pregnant." He froze. "You're what?" "Pregnant. We're having a baby." For a long moment, he just stared. Then he sat down heavily, like his legs had given out. "A baby?" "Yes." "You're sure?" "Dr. Matthews is sure." He looked at the doctor, who nodded confirmation. "Congratulations, Mr. Mercer. You're going to be a father." The ride home was quiet. Colt drove mechanically, his face unreadable. Elena watched him, trying to gauge his reaction and failing. "Say something," she finally said. "I don't know what to say." "Are you upset?" "I don't know. He stopped, ran a hand through his hair. "I'm terrified." "Of what?" "Everything. Keeping you safe. Keeping the baby safe. Being a good father when I barely remember what mine was like." He pulled the wagon to a stop, turned to face her. "Sarah and I tried for years. It never happened. I'd made peace with not having children, and now you're having one whether you made peace with it or not." "Yeah." "I'm terrified too," Elena admitted. "I don't know the first thing about being a mother. My own mother was more concerned with appearances than actual parenting. What if I'm terrible at it?" "You won't be." "How do you know?" "Because you care. That's more than half the battle right there." They looked at each other. Two people who'd stumbled into marriage and now found themselves stumbling into parenthood. We're really doing this? Elena asked. Looks like it. Together? He reached for her hand, squeezed it. Together. However scared we are, we do it together. That night, lying in bed, Colt's hand rested on Elena's stomach. No movement yet, no visible sign, but they both knew what was growing there. Boy or girl? He asked. Does it matter? No, just wondering. What would you want? If you could choose. He thought about it. Healthy, that's all I want. Healthy and loved. That's a good answer. What about you? Elena considered. Same. Though if I'm honest, a girl might be easier. I know what girls need, at least theoretically. You think boys are that different? Aren't they? Probably. I don't know. I've never been responsible for one before. You were a boy once. Barely. My childhood wasn't exactly standard. Neither was mine. Maybe between us we'll muddle through. Muddle through. He laughed softly. That might be the best we can hope for. Is that enough? Has to be. Word spread through Coldwater faster than Elena expected. Mrs. Brennan appeared 3 days later with knitted baby clothes and unsolicited advice. Bill Hoskins offered congratulations and a discount on future baby supplies. Tom Farley bought them dinner and made jokes about Colt finally contributing to the population. Town's excited, Elena observed. Town's nosy, Colt corrected. But yeah, they're excited too. Does it bother you? Everyone knowing our business? Used to. Now I figure it comes with the territory. December arrived with bitter cold and the promise of serious snow. Elena's morning sickness had mostly passed, replaced by a strange vitality that made her want to do everything at once. You're nesting, Dr. Matthews said during a checkup. I'm what? Nesting, preparing. It's normal, just don't overdo it. But overdoing it was exactly what Elena did. She cleaned the house top to bottom, reorganized the pantry, started making baby clothes despite having no real sewing skills. Colt watched with bemused concern. You made 3 pairs of baby socks today, he said. We'll need socks. We'll need a lot of things, but maybe pace yourself? I can't help it. I need to do something. Why? She stopped, needle poised over fabric. Because if I stop moving, I'll think too much. About everything that could go wrong. About childbirth. And whether I'll survive it, and whether the baby will be healthy, and Elena. He took the sewing from her hands, pulled her close. Breathe. I'm scared. I know. What if something happens? What if I can't do this? Then we get help. Dr. Matthews has delivered hundreds of babies. Tom's wife had 4. She can advise. Mrs. Brennan's raised 7. You're not doing this alone. What if it's like Sarah? What if... Don't. His voice was sharp, then softer. Don't borrow trouble. Sarah died from fever, not childbirth. 2 different things. But what if he... No what ifs. We take it one day at a time. And when your time comes, I'll be right there. Not leaving, not panicking, right there. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that everything would work out. But fear was a living thing in her chest, growing alongside the baby. The first major blizzard hit mid-December. They'd been preparing for weeks, but nothing really prepared you for Montana winter in full fury. Snow fell for 3 days straight, piling up against the house, until they had to dig tunnels to reach the barn. How much longer? Elena asked on the second day, watching white obliterate the world outside. Could be another day. Could be a week. That's not comforting. Wasn't meant to be comforting, just honest. They were running low on firewood by day 4. Colt bundled up and went to bring more from the woodshed, leaving Elena by the fire. She was adding wood when she heard him shout, Elena, get out here! She grabbed her coat, forced the door open against the snow. Colt was in the yard, barely visible through the white. What's wrong? She called. The young gelding. He's gotten out somehow, heading toward the ridge. In this weather? I have to go after him. He'll die out there. Colt, you can't. I don't have a choice. He was already moving, disappearing into the storm. Elena stood frozen, torn between following and staying safe. Every instinct screamed that this was dangerous, that he shouldn't go alone, that the storm was too fierce. But she was pregnant. She couldn't risk it, except she couldn't let him risk it alone either. Elena grabbed a rope from the barn, tied one end to the porch railing like she'd done before, and wrapped the other around her waist. Then she followed Colt into the blizzard, each step a battle against wind that tried to knock her down and snow that blinded her. She found him 50 yards out, cornering the panicked horse. The gelding's eyes rolled white with fear, and Colt was trying to calm it enough to get a rope on. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted over the wind. "Helping! You're pregnant! Get back to the house! Not without you!" The horse bolted. Colt lunged, caught the halter, and was dragged sideways. Elena saw him lose his footing, saw the snow swallow him, and terror unlike anything she'd ever known flooded her system. She ran, reached him, grabbed his arm. "I've got you!" Together they fought back to their feet. The horse had stopped, too exhausted to run farther. Colt got the rope on while Elena held the line that connected them to safety. "Follow the rope," he yelled. "Don't let go!" They hauled themselves back, hand over hand, pulling the terrified horse with them. The journey took forever and no time at all. When they finally tumbled into the barn, all three of them were coated in ice and shaking violently. "You could have died," Colt shouted, fear making him angry. "So could you. I'm not carrying our baby." "No, you're just the father of it. You think I want our child growing up without you?" They stared at each other, breathing hard, the weight of what could have happened settling over them. "Don't do that again," Colt said finally. "Don't make me have to." He pulled her close, and they stood there shaking while the storm raged and the gelding settled into a stall, safe and stupid and alive. That night they didn't sleep, just held each other and listened to the wind try to tear the world apart. "I'm sorry," Colt said eventually. "For what?" "For scaring you, for being reckless. You were saving the horse. Still, I'm sorry too, for following you, for risking—" Her hand went to her stomach. "Don't apologize for that. You saved my life. Again. We keep saving each other. Yeah, we do." Elena shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position. "Colt?" "Yeah?" "Promise me something." "What?" "Promise that when the baby comes, you won't do anything stupid trying to protect us, that you'll stay alive, stay safe, be there." His arms tightened around her. "I promise to try." "That's not the same as promising. It's the best I can do, because if it comes down to you and the baby or me, there's no question what I choose." "Colt? No, I need you to understand this. You and this baby, you're everything. I'd burn the whole ranch down, give up everything I own, die 100 deaths if it meant keeping you safe. Don't ask me to promise otherwise." Tears slid down Elena's cheeks. "You can't mean that. I've never meant anything more." She kissed him, tasting salt and fear and love stronger than sense. Outside, the storm continued its assault. But inside, wrapped around each other, they found warmth enough to survive whatever came next. The blizzard finally broke on the 5th day, leaving the world buried under 4 feet of snow. Colt spent the morning digging them out while Elena insisted on helping despite his protests. "I'm pregnant, not made of glass," she said, shoveling snow with more determination than technique. "You're also the only one of us carrying our child. Let me do the heavy work. This is Montana. Heavy work doesn't stop just because I'm expecting." He opened his mouth to argue, caught the stubborn set of her jaw, and wisely shut it again. They'd been married long enough for him to recognize a battle he wouldn't win. By afternoon, they'd cleared enough space to reach the barn and check on the animals. The livestock had weathered the storm well, though they were restless from days of confinement. The young gelding who'd nearly killed them both stood in his stall looking supremely unconcerned about the chaos he'd caused. "Stupid horse," Colt muttered, but his hand was gentle as he checked the animal over for injuries. "He didn't know," Elena said. "Still stupid." Winter deepened. Elena's belly grew, subtle at first, then unmistakable. By late January, she'd started waddling slightly, which Colt found both endearing and terrifying. Every day brought her closer to childbirth, and every day his anxiety ratcheted higher. "You're hovering," Elena said one morning, catching him watching her make breakfast. "I'm not hovering. You've been standing in that exact spot for 10 minutes, staring at me like I might explode." "You might." "I'm cooking eggs, Colt, not diffusing a bomb." "Still." She set down the pan, crossed to him, and took his face in her hands. "I need you to breathe. We have months still." "I'm fine. The baby's fine. Everything is fine." Sarah said she was fine, right up until she wasn't. There it was. the fear he'd been carrying since Dr. Matthews confirmed the pregnancy. Elena had suspected it was there, lurking beneath his protective behavior, but hearing it spoken aloud hit differently. "I'm not Sarah," she said gently. "I know that. Do you? Because sometimes it feels like you're preparing for me to die." "I'm preparing for anything. That's different." "Is it?" He pulled away, paced to the window. Outside, snow covered everything, pristine and deadly beautiful. "I can't lose you. I won't survive it twice." "You're not going to lose me." "You can't promise that." "No, I can't. But I can promise I'll fight like hell to stay alive. For you, for this baby, for the life we're building. Is that enough?" He turned, and the naked fear in his eyes nearly broke her. "It has to be." Dr. Matthews visited every 2 weeks now, making the trip from town despite the weather. She examined Elena thoroughly each time, pronouncing everything normal and healthy. "You're doing wonderfully," she said during a February visit. "Baby's growing right on schedule, heartbeat strong." "And the birth?" Elena asked. "What should I expect?" "Pain, lots of it. But you're young and healthy, your hips are good. Barring complications, you should have a straightforward delivery." "And if there are complications?" Dr. Matthews met her eyes squarely. "Then we handle them. I've delivered over 300 babies, Elena. I know what I'm doing." "That's not actually comforting. It's not meant to be. Childbirth is dangerous. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying. But you're as prepared as you can be, and I'll be here when the time comes." After she left, Colt found Elena in the bedroom, hands on her swollen belly, face troubled. "What did she say?" he asked. "That everything's fine, and that childbirth is dangerous." "We knew that already." Knowing and hearing it confirmed are different things. He sat beside her, placed his hand over hers. Beneath their palms, the baby kicked, strong, insistent, alive. "Feel that?" Elena whispered. "Yeah. That's our child, fighting to get out, fighting to live. If they can fight, so can I. You're already the strongest person I know." "I don't feel strong. I feel terrified." "Same thing sometimes." She leaned against him, and they sat there feeling their baby move, preparing themselves for what was coming. March brought false spring, warm days that melted snow, followed by freezing nights that turned everything to ice. Elena was huge now, her belly so distended she couldn't see her own feet. Simple tasks became monumental efforts. She couldn't ride anymore, could barely walk without waddling, and her back ached constantly. "I hate this," she announced one afternoon, struggling to put on her boots. 2 more months, Colt said, helping her. 2 months of getting bigger? I'm already the size of a barn. "You're not. Don't tell me I'm beautiful. I'm huge and uncomfortable, and I just want this baby out." He wisely said nothing, just finished tying her boots. "I'm sorry," Elena said after a moment. "I don't mean to snap at you." "You're growing a human. You're allowed to snap." "That's very understanding of you." "I'm terrified of you. There's a difference." She laughed despite herself. "Smart man." April arrived with mud and rain and Elena's increasing impatience. She was due mid-May, but every morning she woke hoping this would be the day. The waiting was torture, made worse by her inability to do much beyond waddle around the house. "I'm useless," she complained. "You're creating life. That's the opposite of useless." "Tell that to the fence that needs mending." "The fence can wait." "You can't." Mrs. Brennan visited weekly now, bringing supplies and encouragement. She'd been present at dozens of births and had firm opinions about everything from diet to sleeping positions. "You need to walk," she instructed. "Every day, at least an hour. Helps the baby drop into position." "Walking is hard," Elena said. "So is pushing an 8-pound baby out of your body. Walking is easier." Elena walked. Colt walked with her, matching her glacial pace, ready to catch her if she stumbled. They circled the house, the barn, the paddocks, while Elena breathed through increasing discomfort, and Colt tried not to look as worried as he felt. "What if something goes wrong?" he asked Tom one afternoon, riding into town for supplies. "Then Dr. Matthews handles it." "What if she can't?" "Then you handle it. You do what needs doing, and you don't quit, same as everything else." "That's not helpful." "Wasn't meant to be helpful. Was meant to be honest." Tom studied him. "You're going to be fine, Colt. Both of you are." "You can't know that." "No, but I can believe it. Sometimes that's enough." The first pain hit on May 12th mid-afternoon while Elena was hanging laundry. She doubled over, gasping, and Colt was there in seconds. What's wrong? I don't... Another pain, sharper. I think it's time. He went pale. Now? Yes, now. Go get Dr. Matthews. He ran for his horse, already saddled and ready for this exact moment. The ride to town took 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. He burst into Dr. Matthews' office, wild-eyed and panicked. It's time, he said. She grabbed her bag, already packed. How far apart are the contractions? I don't know. I left immediately. That was stupid. You should have timed them. I was too busy panicking. They rode back together, Colt pushing his horse faster than was safe. He found Elena in the bedroom, Mrs. Brennan already there, talking her through contractions. 7 minutes apart, Mrs. Brennan reported. Good, strong contractions. Dr. Matthews examined Elena quickly. You're progressing well, but it'll be hours yet. First babies take their time. Hours? Elena gasped. Usually. Could be faster, could be slower. Every birth is different. Colt hovered uselessly, watching Elena breathe through pain and feeling his own panic rise with each contraction. You need to leave, Dr. Matthews said. What? No. Yes, you're making her nervous, and nervous mothers have harder labors. I promised I'd be here. You can be here later. Right now you need to go. Colt, Elena said between contractions. Go. But, please, I need to focus, and I can't do that if you're panicking. He wanted to argue, wanted to insist on staying, but the look in her eyes told him she meant it. Reluctantly, he left, stationing himself just outside the door where he could hear everything. The hours crawled by. He paced. Saturday. Paced again. Every cry from Elena drove a spike through his chest. Mrs. Brennan emerged periodically with updates, still progressing, doing well. It'll be a while yet. How long is a while? He demanded. However long it takes. Could be 2 hours, could be 12. Be patient. Patient. Right. While the woman he loved was in agony in the next room. Dusk came. Then full dark. Lanterns were lit. The sounds from the bedroom intensified. Elena's breathing, sharp cries. Doctor, Matthews giving instructions. Colt's hands clenched so hard his nails drew blood from his palms. Around midnight, something changed. The rhythm of sounds shifted, became more urgent. Colt heard Dr. Matthews say something sharp, heard Mrs. Brennan move quickly. He couldn't take it anymore. He pushed through the door. I said stay out, Dr. Matthews barked. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. But the baby's crowning, and you don't need to see this. Elena, I'm fine, Elena gasped, though she clearly wasn't. She was covered in sweat, hair plastered to her face, eyes wild with pain and effort. Colt, I'm fine. You don't look fine. Get out, Dr. Matthews ordered. Now, or I swear I'll have Tom arrest you. Mrs. Brennan physically pushed him toward the door. Let them work, Colt. She's strong. She'll make it through. Back in the hallway, he slid down the wall and buried his face in his hands. This was worse than any storm, any drought, any disaster the ranch had faced. Because this time, there was nothing he could do. No fence to mend, no animal to save, no problem he could solve with hard work and determination. He could only wait and trust and pray to anything that might be listening that Elena would survive. A scream split the air, raw and primal and terrifying. Then silence. Horrible, absolute silence. Colt's heart stopped. The silence stretched, eternal and damning. Then, a baby's cry. Thin and reedy at first, then stronger, angry, alive. The door opened. Mrs. Brennan stood there smiling, holding a tiny bundle. Congratulations, she said. You have a daughter. Colt stared at the baby, so impossibly small, red-faced and furious, waving tiny fists. Elena? He managed. Exhausted but fine. Go see her. He stumbled into the room. Elena lay against the pillows, pale and sweaty and more beautiful than he'd ever seen her. Doctor. Matthews was cleaning up, efficient and calm. You did it, Colt said, dropping to his knees beside the bed. We did it. Elena reached for him and he took her hand carefully, like she might break. We have a daughter. Mrs. Brennan placed the baby in Elena's arms, and Colt got his first real look at his daughter. Dark hair, scrunched face, impossibly tiny fingers that gripped his when he offered one. "She's perfect," he whispered. "She's loud," Elena said, but her smile was radiant. "And stubborn, already fighting. Takes after her mother. Definitely takes after her mother." They sat there, the three of them, while dawn broke outside and the ranch woke to a new day. Dr. Matthews finished her work, declared both mother and baby healthy, and left them alone. "What should we name her?" Elena asked. Colt studied his daughter, this tiny person who'd nearly killed him with fear and filled him with more love than he'd thought possible. "Margaret," he said, "after your grandmother, if that's okay." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "That's perfect." Little Margaret, Maggie, they quickly started calling her, proved to be exactly as stubborn and loud as her first moments suggested. She cried when she was hungry, when she was tired, when she was wet, and sometimes just because she felt like it. The house that had been quiet for so long now rang with infant screams at all hours. "Is this normal?" Colt asked Mrs. Brennan during one particularly trying night. "Completely. Some babies are easy, some are born fighting, yours is a fighter." "She gets that from Elena. She gets it from both of you." The days blurred together in a haze of feedings and diaper changes and desperate attempts at sleep. Elena was sore and exhausted, but refused to rest. "I need to do something," she insisted, trying to get out of bed too soon. "You need to heal," Colt countered, gently pushing her back down. The ranch is fine. I'm handling it." "You can't handle everything alone. Watch me." He was running on maybe 3 hours of sleep, split into 20-minute increments between Maggie's demands. The ranch work still needed doing, animals still needed feeding, fences still needed mending. But every time he left the house, he worried. About Elena pushing herself too hard. About Maggie crying and him not hearing. About everything that could go wrong. "You look like death," Tom observed, finding Colt half asleep against a fence post. "I feel like death." "Welcome to fatherhood. It gets easier." "When?" "About 18 years. That's not helpful." Wasn't meant to be helpful. Was meant to be honest. By the end of May, they'd found something resembling a rhythm. Maggie still woke every few hours, but they'd learned to anticipate her needs. Elena was healing well, slowly regaining her strength. The house felt different now. Lived in, loved in, full of purpose beyond just survival. One morning, Colt woke to find Elena already up, standing by the window with Maggie in her arms. Sunlight streamed through, painting them both golden. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Showing her the ranch, her home." He joined them, wrapping his arms around both. Outside, the land stretched endlessly, grass greening up, cattle grazing, the mountains standing sentinel in the distance. "Think she'll love it?" Elena asked. "How could she not? It's hers." "Ours." "Yeah, ours." Maggie fussed, and Elena shifted her, rocking gently. "I never thought I'd have this. A real home, a real family. Neither did I. Not after Sarah. Do you think she'd approve? Of us?" Colt thought about it. "Yeah, I think she would. Sarah wanted me to be happy. He gestured at the three of them, at the ranch, at the life they'd built. "This would have made her happy. I wish I could have met her. She would have liked you. Stubborn recognizes stubborn." Elena laughed. "Is that your way of saying we're both difficult?" "Among other things." June brought real warmth and new challenges. Maggie was growing, changing daily. She started smiling, which made the sleepless nights almost worth it. Elena was back to helping with ranch work, though Colt insisted she take it easy. "I'm not fragile," she said, carrying water to the garden. "You gave birth 6 weeks ago." "And I'm healed. Dr. Matthews said so. Still. Colt Mercer, if you don't stop treating me like I might break, I'm going to break something over your head." He wisely backed off. They were working together in the garden, Maggie sleeping in a basket nearby, when a rider appeared on the horizon. Colt tensed immediately, hand moving to the rifle he now kept close. But it was just Tom, riding in with his usual easy pace. "Relax," he called. "Just bringing news." "What news?" Tom dismounted, grinning. "Heard from Marshal Grant. Richard Ashford's been arrested." Elena's breath caught. "What?" "Fraud, apparently. An assault. Turns out Mrs. Chen wasn't his only victim willing to talk. 3 other women came forward with similar stories, Between all of them, the Philadelphia DA built a case. He's looking at serious prison time. The relief that flooded through Elena was so intense she had to sit down. He can't hurt me anymore? He can't hurt anyone anymore, not for a long while. Colt's arm came around her shoulders, solid and sure. It's really over. Really over, Tom confirmed. Thought you'd want to know. After Tom left, Elena sat in the garden with Maggie in her lap and let herself cry. Relief, joy, the release of months of tension, it all poured out in messy, inelegant sobs. Hey, Colt said, kneeling beside her. It's okay. You're safe. I know. That's why I'm crying. He held them both while Elena cried herself out and Maggie slept peacefully, oblivious to the significance of the moment. When the tears finally stopped, Elena felt lighter than she had in years. What do we do now? She asked. Now we live. Really live, not just survive. Just like that? Just like that. Summer settled over the ranch in full force. The hay grew tall, the cattle fattened. Maggie grew from infant to baby, discovering her voice and using it constantly. She loved being outside, would stop crying the moment Elena carried her out to see the horses. She's going to be a rancher, Colt predicted, watching his daughter's face light up at the sight of the animals. Of course she is. Look at her parents. Could be worse things to be. They worked through the summer, rebuilding what winters had damaged, expanding what they could. The ranch was thriving now, better than it had been in years. Word had spread about their cattle quality, and buyers started coming from as far as Billings. You've turned this place around, Tom observed during a visit. We've turned it around, Colt corrected, nodding at Elena. Fair point. You two make a good team. Better than good. In August, Mrs. Brennan organized a gathering at the church hall, ostensibly to celebrate Maggie's baptism, though both Colt and Elena had been clear they weren't doing that. Instead, it became a celebration of their family, their survival, their success against odds that should have beaten them. The whole town came. Food covered every available surface. Someone brought a fiddle. Children ran wild while adults talked and laughed and congratulated the Mercers on their beautiful daughter and thriving ranch. You've done well, Bill Hoskins said, shaking Colt's hand. Your father would be proud. Colt felt his throat tighten. His father had died when Colt was 15, leaving him a struggling ranch and a pile of debt. It had taken years to dig out, to make something sustainable. Now, looking around at the success they'd built, he thought maybe Bill was right. Elena found him later, standing outside watching the sunset. Hiding? She asked. Breathing. Too many people in there. You did good, though. Talked to everyone, didn't scowl once. I scowled at Tom. Tom deserved it. He pulled her close, Maggie sleeping against her shoulder. How'd we get here? Here where? Here. This. A year ago I was alone and angry and barely holding on. Now I have you, have Maggie, have a ranch that's actually successful. How'd that happen? You answered your own question. You're not alone anymore. Neither are you. No, neither am I. They stood watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and red while their daughter slept, and the sounds of celebration drifted from the hall. A year ago, Elena had arrived overdressed and underprepared, expecting isolation and finding something completely different. A year ago, Colt had been a broken man, ordering a practical solution to loneliness. Now they were something else entirely, partners, parents, people who'd found in each other exactly what they needed, even if it wasn't what they'd wanted at first. I love you, Elena said. I love you too. Think we'll make it? Make it where? Through everything, through winters and storms and whatever else Montana throws at us. Yeah, I think we will. You sure? As sure as I can be about anything. He kissed her temple. We've survived everything else. What's a few more decades? She laughed. Is that your idea of romance? It's my idea of honesty. Romance is for people who have time for it. We've got a ranch to run and a baby to raise. And each other. And each other. Fall arrived with its usual urgency. They worked long days putting up hay, preparing for winter, making sure everything was secure. Maggie was crawling now, getting into everything, requiring constant supervision. She's going to be trouble, Elena predicted, fishing her daughter out from under the porch for the third time. Takes after her mother. I was never this bad. You tied a rope around your waist and walked into a blizzard to save me. You were worse. Elena couldn't argue with that. The first snow came in late October, a light dusting that Maggie found fascinating. She tried to eat it, cried when it melted in her hands, demanded to go outside despite the cold. She definitely takes after you, Colt said, bundling their daughter in blankets for the 5th time that day. How do you figure? Stubborn, curious, doesn't know when to quit. Those are all your traits too. Exactly. Poor kid never had a chance. They spent the winter as they'd spent the previous one, working, surviving, building. But this time, they had Maggie. This time, the house was full of laughter and crying and all the messy, beautiful chaos that came with a baby. This time, they weren't just surviving, they were living. Spring came again, as it always did. The snow melted, the grass greened, the cattle moved to higher pastures. Maggie took her first steps, falling more than walking, but determined to master it. She's fearless, Elena said, watching their daughter attempt to walk across the yard. She gets that from you. Colt, we both know she gets her stubbornness from you. Can't it be both? Probably is. They stood together, watching their daughter discover the world, and Colt thought about how far they'd come. From a desperate advertisement to a functioning partnership to something deeper and more permanent than either of them had expected. They'd survived storms, both literal and metaphorical. They'd fought for each other when it would have been easier to quit. They'd built something real and lasting from the ashes of their individual pasts. What are you thinking? Elena asked. That I'm glad you answered my ad. Even though I wasn't what you ordered? Especially because you weren't what I ordered. I ordered practical and got you instead. Best mistake I ever made. That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said to me. Don't get used to it. She kissed him, laughing, while Maggie toddled between them, demanding attention. The Montana wind blew warm for once, carrying the scent of growing things and new possibilities. This was it, Elena thought. This was the life she'd been running toward without knowing it. Not perfection. They fought sometimes, struggled often, and had no idea what they were doing half the time. But it was real. It was theirs. And it was enough. More than enough. Years later, standing in that same yard with Maggie grown and learning to ride, with the ranch thriving beyond anything Colt had imagined possible, he would look at Elena and still see the woman who'd stepped off the train in an impractical green dress. Still see the determination and strength that had first cracked his defenses. Still glad I answered that ad? She'd ask. Every single day. Even when I'm stubborn? Especially when you're stubborn. They'd built something impossible together. Two broken people who'd found each other by accident and stayed by choice. Who'd learned that survival wasn't enough, that you had to fight for more. Fight for love, for family, for a home that meant something beyond four walls and a roof. The Montana frontier had tested them in every way possible, had thrown storms and threats and impossible challenges at them. And they'd survived it all, not because they were perfect or lucky or particularly smart, but because they'd refused to quit, refused to give up on each other or the fragile thing they were building. That was the real story, not a romance or a rescue or a fairy tale. Just two people who found each other in the middle of nowhere and decided that together was better than apart. Who looked at the endless, unforgiving land and saw possibility instead of isolation. Who turned a desperate arrangement into something worth fighting for. Who proved that sometimes the best things come from the worst circumstances. If you're brave enough to hold on through the storms, the ranch would pass to Maggie eventually. She'd carry it forward, add her own story to the land. But she'd always know how it started, with a desperate advertisement, an unexpected arrival, and two people who learned to love each other despite every reason not to. That was legacy enough. That was everything.